Soon. Okay, we're live. Welcome, guys, to this week's edition of Fights Unwrapped. To the right of me is Mr. Alec Carr, my co-host. Alec Carr, we always do this before every single show, so if you have anything to plug in, this is your time to do so.
Like always, guys, you can follow me at AlecTDCar. It's my personal account. It's the account where I kind of put out a bunch of shit talking, a bunch of crazy stuff, crazy content. It's all my personal beliefs and opinions on all things sports, which can get kind of nutty. And I always tell you guys, if you don't like what you hear, you don't like what you read, you don't like what you hear and hear, or what you watch and hear, and you disagree with me, please at me. I love talking sports. I love arguing about sports. Ask anybody in the unwrapped community. If I get in a disagreement, I will go down dying on the ship, no matter what, even if I'm wrong sometimes. But and then you can also follow us at Fourth and 26 Sports. It's a Philadelphia platform. We're putting out all Philadelphia news. The Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid breaking news stuff about them missing the first game or two back after the break. We've been all over that. And just news in general. There's lots of fight content coming out of there, a lot of retweeting headlines. Some of the headlines we'll talk about today have been retweeted through that account. And then I will be at some point, hopefully, it sounds like I got some time freed up. So maybe sooner rather than later, I'll be hopping back onto the Hoops Unwrap. And as always, at Unwrap Sports, the Unwrap Sports Network we are part of, you can follow us all there for some unbelievable sports content.
Awesome. Thank you, Alec Carr. So before we get into our headlines, we got to talk a little bit about our sponsors. Okay, I cannot wait, as always, to see Mr. Carlos Condit back in the octagon ever since his last win against Matt Brown, which was really exciting. He's a huge proponent for RxHemp.com, so if anybody is suffering from any injuries or needs any recovery needs, RxHemp.com has the most premium CBD products, icy hot creams, and you can get 10% off your order if you use our promo code RxHemp-USN, as you can see right there. And also, this is a really good card. We were just talking about it, me and Alec Carr. We were just saying how great this fight card is going to be this week. So I'm definitely going to be betting. I'm definitely going to be using mybookie.ag. And there's a promo code USN100. So if you register today, you can double up your deposit, 100% sign up bonus, up to $1,000 if you have that lying around, and minimum $45 or $50. So not too bad. So there you go. We're gonna use our we're gonna do our headlines really quickly and show some love from the Unwrapped Sports Network. Let's go. There you go. Love it. All right. So first headline we're gonna talk about is something that we kind of talked about before. Is Triple C actually back now? Alec Carr was the one who alluded to me about this because he showed an interview where Triple C actually did with SB Nation, I believe it was, and then ESPN caught that. ESPN MMA caught that, and then they put it on their site right there. So, and he's saying that he would love to face Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling as well, and he's saying that he wants to come back, or he should be back, or like tune in to see him back. So it's a very like mysterious kind of way of him saying that he wants to come back or that he will be back soon. It looks like he's planning to come back, Alec Carr. I mean, like they said that he put his retirement on the platform, I think May 20th or something like that of this year, and now he's saying he wants back. So what do you think about that?
I think it was really weird. If you guys didn't catch the interview, really what happened was he was talking about that Sterling Yan fight, who he wants to face. It was his first time really doing a public interview on that big of a platform. And he kind of just threw in at the end the Triple C's coming back, and then he signed off in
Right.
classic Cejudo form, which is like, see you guys.
With the creepy eyes and the
right, and don't get me wrong, I think the guy's a total creep, a weirdo. I think he's got some issues going on. but I love
Yeah.
watching him fight. There's nothing that I can't say that when he steps into the octagon, I am not excited, because I am. I'm always very, very excited to see this man fight. It's a guy that beat DJ. It's a guy that beat Dominic Cruz. That essentially ended Dominic Cruz's career, even though Dominic Cruz is coming off the win from last week. It's nuts. I mean, this is if he fights Jan, if he fights Aljo, sign me up. Cejudo coming back, sign me up. We talked about it last week.
Yeah.
I'm all in on this. I would love to see him fight Figgy, Jan, Aljo, Volkanovski. Like, just line them all up. Let's see if he can beat them all. Let's see if he's the GOAT that he claims to be. The other thing is, though, and we got to talk about this when talking about Triple C coming back to fight one of these guys, Jan or Aljo, there has to be a rematch.
Yeah.
I don't like what Jan did. I personally think maybe not 100% intentional, but he had to have known. And we talk about how smart of a fighter Jan is. He listens to his corner, and his corner was the ones calling it out. He had to know 8 fights into his UFC career. He had to have known this is a down fighter, especially since the ref said he was a down fighter before the knee was thrown. And I can't. Aljo's. I don't consider him a fake champ. I think he's a real champ. You do something like that, you get fucking DQ'd. That's what happens. Now Aljo was clearly losing the fight in my eyes, so that has something to do with it. Now, if he was winning the fight and it happened, maybe he could get away doing another fight first before doing a rematch. But dude, you weren't winning that fight. You gotta run it back. You have. Yeah. I know you don't want to, because you might lose the belt, but you gotta run it back. You gotta run it back. You gotta give Jan that chance. It doesn't. The other thing that, and I want you to talk about this too. The other thing that irks me is Jan doesn't seem sorry at all. I know he gave that apology out, but listen, I'm not in the right, and I'm not in the business of judging Aljo for. People are saying he faked it because he was taking photos afterwards. I don't know. He looks pretty dazed in those photos after the fight. And every fighter takes photos after the fight, so I don't know why people are saying that.
Well, one thing I will talk about, which kind of irks me, is that Aljo did the interview right after he was concussed, which is that's a no-no in my books, and that's actually a rule where you're not supposed to technically interview anybody that after they were concussed. So that was a really big no-no for me. I mean, Peter Yan, that was just disappointing, because he was winning that fight. And then just like you should have known. I know that he was listening to his corner, and they were saying like, I think it was kick him to the body. I wasn't too sure because they were obviously talking in their mother tongue. But at the same time, it's just like it's just that was the most like that's an illegal knee. Everybody knows that you shouldn't do that when someone's down like that, and it's just for me, it's just disappointing. That's how the fight ended. Of course, I want the rematch. I don't give Aljamain Sterling any I'm not saying he's a fake champion as well, but at the same time he wasn't winning that fight. And if they run it back again, I swear to God that Jan's probably gonna win that belt back, most likely.
He'll probably win in the first round by TKO. I don't know if he can knock Aljo out, but he can certainly get him, beat the crap out of him, and then ground and pound him until he gives up.
Right, and like we were talking, everybody was talking after the fights happened about how maybe it's because of the smack talking between Aljo and Jan that there's a reason why maybe Jan is not as remorseful when it comes to that illegal knee. Perhaps maybe it was in the moment, maybe it was the smack talking because different cultures and whatnot, but. It could be that. At the same time, I'm just disappointed that it ended that way, just because that was just a whole mess. I mean, the legal knee was a mess. There was actually, I don't know if you caught this, Alucard, there was another illegal knee earlier, or a legal knee or a legal elbow to the head that Jan did, but they just didn't catch it right away. But just saying, I just when I was watching, I saw that. So
Yeah, it looked like Jan. And listen, I love the Russian fighters. I love the fighters from that side of the world. They're crazy. They're nuts. They're tough. The toughest fighters in the world. Usually, those guys. Um, the one thing they don't do is take shit talk very well.
Mm-mm.
Not
Exactly.
at all. Everything you say is personal. Um, and listen, it's a different culture. That it's a different lifestyle out there. I'm not going to pretend to understand it. But you could tell that Jan was taking that a little personally, kind of like Khabib did with Connor. Um, the whole thing was nuts. It's a shame. It's got to be. I'm sure it's eating away at Jan. Like, what the hell did I do? Why did I do that? I got to fight this guy again and just beat the crap out of him because this is ridiculous. That's my belt, and honestly, run it back as soon as possible. I don't want to see getting back to the headline. I don't want to see a Cejudo Aljo fight before Jan and Aljo
No,
too.
exactly. Yeah,
I just
yeah.
don't want to see it. As much as I love watching Cejudo fight, it can't happen until there's a crowned. And
Champion,
again,
yeah.
I don't like calling it a fake champion, but an actual crown champion instead of a DQ.
A DQ crown, yeah, exactly. Crown
Right.
champion. I agree. Yeah.
And then Cejudo can come back. Maybe he fights Figgy before then. That would be. Let's do that.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Talking about triple, I was about to ask you about the whole Jan and Aljo fight, just because I know that was a huge controversy debacle that happened in the sports world, in the MMA sports world. That is really unfortunate. Jan, you're a smarter fighter. I expected more from you than like to throw that illegal knee. I get it. Okay, tensions are rising in the octagon. I bet you, especially after the smack talking, especially because you probably didn't handle it very well. Do you remember him versus Cody Garbrandt when they were like backstage and then he was doing the smack that's how Peter Yan doesn't handle smack talk
Yeah.
very well. So that's just another example of how he doesn't do that very well. So just very disappointed in that. I'm disappointed how he handled it. I'm disappointed how the UFC handled again. Like you do not interview Aljamain Sterling
No.
after he just got concussed. Like I told you, that's a huge hard no for me. So they just handled it terribly. Okay, at the
Yeah,
end of the day.
that's the Joe Rogan rule. He was always a proponent of that. He always said he hated. I hate having to go into the octagon and interview a fighter that just got knocked out.
And he did, unfortunately. He literally
Right,
had to.
right.
So that was like me watching that. That was disgusting for me. But I don't know. Anyways, I just want to move on. I want to. We have to wait at least 6 months, I believe, because that's the concussion protocol. For
Right.
medical suspensions and stuff like that. So we have to wait at least until the fall to see this happen. So, but at least the sooner the better, and then we'll see what happens with Cejudo if he is coming back. All right. So speaking of which, we'll move on to our next headline. Okay, so somebody's not happy about Islam, and his name is RDA. Okay, so basically, RDA was responding to the hype where it's like, "Oh, nobody said anything when Neil Dariush beat Drew Dober, but everybody is talking about how much of a monster of a fighter, aka DC, was talking about how much of a monster of a fighter Islam Makhachev is after his win against Drew Dober." Now, my opinion on this, Islam is a monster. He is definitely in his prime. He had Habib in his corner, actually, if you saw the fight. And he definitely dominated that fight. No questions about that. I understand RDA's, I guess opinion. They were supposed to fight earlier, but then it got Islam had to pull out of
Yeah.
that fight, right? So then there's some earlier tension over there. So I'm sure that's one of the reasons why RDA is responding to that. Now Islam is sitting at number 11, I believe, and RDA is at number 7. So we're not saying yes, but there could be a matchup between them very very soon, which would be very exciting. Actually, I would love to see that matchup. I think stylistically it's interesting, in my
Book it.
opinions. All right, yeah, for sure. Book it, Dana. Book it. What do you think about RDA like kind of raining down on the Islam hype? Do
I
you
mean,
agree with him?
he's not wrong. and what he said, what nothing he said was wrong. Um, the Dariush didn't get as much credit as Islam did for beating Dober. So, I mean, RDA is also probably looking for another fight. He's coming off that impressive Paul Felder fight, so this is a great opportunity for him to say, "I want to fight Islam. I want to prove that he's not the guy that everybody thinks he is." And I'm ranked number 7. I beat a young up and comer. Maybe I leapfrog Connor and maybe even Tony into the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets his championship. Then he's part of that, contenders whenever Khabib officially vacates the throne,
Yeah.
which is a topic for another stream that could be to take up the whole 45 minutes to an hour that we usually do. But I love it. I think that this should be the next fight. I think it's a great, like you said, stylistically a great matchup. RDA is a beast of a lightweight. Not so good when he stepped up, but when he came back down to lightweight, he proved again against Paul Felder just how good he was. This guy's a monster. And he's a veteran and he's experienced and he's one of the smartest fighters I've ever watched. Islam is a beast. He's a monster. And I'm just going to say this. DC, Daniel Cormier, please, dude, you got to stop talking about these people that are in your gym like they're the greatest fighters ever. You have to be middle of the road. You're a UFC MMA analyst now. You have to be objective. Anytime there's a fighter that fights in his gym, this guy's the greatest guy. He's the next Khabib. I can't wait to see him. And that might all be true, but dude, you got to keep it under control. You can't go out there acting like this is the sure thing next guy in the arguably the most stacked division in the entire UFC. I don't know if he can beat Michael Chandler. I don't know if he can beat Charles Oliveira. I don't know if he can beat Gaethje. And Khabib, he certainly will never fight Khabib because they're in the same fight camp, and that's just not how they'll roll. But he certainly could never beat Khabib. So can we just calm down? He'd be a good fighter in Drew Dober, but it's not like he just stepped up and fought Conor McGregor and absolutely annihilated him. Can we just pump the brakes a little bit, DC, on this? Just relax and say it was a good win. It was a great win. Let's see him step up and fight RDA next.
Yeah, okay, I will say this. DC I never cared about as a commentator. I never really cared about him as a fighter as well. So I'm not surprised that he's always hyping up his men. Like, here's the thing. You are allowed to hype up the fighters in your fight camp, but there comes to a certain point where you go overboard, and that's exactly what DC is doing. So, like, I agree with Alex saying that DC, you just gotta just calm down a little bit about the fighters in your camp. I'm not saying that you can't talk about them, but the way you talk about them, it's like you're saying that there's nobody else in the contender series, like, contender for Khabib's belt. And also, I wanted to talk about how Islam, even though if the RDA and Islam fight happen, there's the biggest difference between Islam versus RDA is that RDA has like the most confidence in the world. And obviously a impeccable experience to back it up. In Islam, he needs to work on his confidence because he is very good. He's a monster of a fighter, but then, like, because he's always in Khabib's shadow, they have stories about how Khabib and him used to fight each other, and Khabib would always win, and he would always be dominated by Khabib, and because of that, he doesn't have the best confidence in the world. So I just think that he needs to work on his confidence, and he's still in his prime. He's getting there. He's in his prime right now, but I just think that he has to work on his confidence in order for him to get to that next level to fight the contenders if he ever gets to that point. That's just what I mean.
No, it's a really good point, and I just thought of something too. Does he tell Khabib to back off? Because
that's what I'm saying.
It's just be like, hey man, get out of my. I love you. Thank you for everything you've taught me, but get out of my corner. Like I gotta have my own path, and Islam, as long as Khabib is constantly in his corner, is constantly talking about Islam, and it's always gonna be Islam is the next Khabib, not Islam is Islam. Like
Yeah,
we're never gonna
exactly.
hear that. Um,
Hmm.
that would be so funny. Listen, the fighters don't leave that camp ever because it's such a great fight camp. I mean, it's amazing. Some of the greatest fighters in the UFC come out of that camp. So I get why DC, and he loves his guys, and I respect him for that. He is apparently an amazing wrestling coach too. So I think this is like the coach in him coming out, being like, I'm so proud of my guys. I love my guys. But yeah, you just got to tone it down a little bit, especially on a broadcast. Like you got to just take the dial, turn it down a little bit. Just turn just a little bit. Stop turning it up to 10, turn it up to like 5 and be like, I've seen this guy practice. He's incredible. I can't wait to see him at the next level, and stop it there.
Exactly. I agree. I agree. So for sure, RDA Islam, book that fight, Dana. Book it because I want to see it. That fight was supposed to be there originally anyway, so you might as well book it. And Islam is hot right now. RDA is hot. You might as well make the fight happen, and we will be the judge of that when hopefully that fight actually happens. So we'll move on to the next headline, which is actually surprising because a lot of people thought that it was supposed to be John Jones versus Israel Adesanya. That was the matchup that Dana really wanted. But you know what? Stylebender's coach said that Bones was actually never in the picture. They were actually going to go all the way and say, you know what, fuck it. If we won this weekend, we were going to go and defend and go up to heavyweight and defend against Miocic. So, I mean, what do you think about that, Alucard? Like, I'm not surprised that the John Jones fight was never really in the cards, according to his coaching staff.
I'm not surprised because I don't think either of these, and I've said it in the stream before, and I've said it in our chats, and I've said it to anybody who wants to talk about it. I don't think this. It's like the Anderson Silva GSP fight. Both fighters are going to talk shit. They're both going to talk about the fight and how it would be, how it's the fight to make. But neither fighter is going to make it. Meaning Jones and Izzy is never going to happen. Jones feels like, he's beaten all the best of all time already. He doesn't have much left to prove, except for going up to heavyweight and beating Miocic or Ngannou. And even if he didn't, Jones were to wake up tomorrow and retire, I would say about 45% of the MMA community would call him the GOAT already, just because of the guys he's already beat. Like, he doesn't have to go up to heavyweight. And because of that, he's not going to make any concessions when booking an Izzy fight. You're the young up-and-comer, Izzy. You gotta come up to him. You got to meet him on his terms. He's got nothing to prove. And in the other corner, Izzy doesn't want to fight Jones. He doesn't want to put that on his record of getting destroyed by John Jones. I'm not saying he would get destroyed. I'm not trying to call the fight, but if it did happen, it's only bad for Izzy. If he beats John Jones, he beat slightly older John Jones, not that big a deal. He didn't beat John Jones in his prime. That's what people would say.
Yeah.
Right? If he loses to John Jones, this guy isn't the GOAT. He's never going to be the GOAT. He can't beat John Jones. John Jones torched him. So it's a lose-lose for Izzy no matter what. Now, getting to the headline, I was kind of shocked by this. Not that clearly I never thought the fight was going to happen anyway, but I'm shocked that a coach came out and admitted it. It kind of kills their marketing standpoint on this.
Yeah.
I'm sure Dana wasn't happy to hear this. But the exact quote was, I think I can answer this because it is besides the point now. We lost. If we won the title, for me and our management team and our team, we were going all the way. Why stop? And now he's talking about light heavyweight division going up to heavyweight. He's saying, why stop there? We're going up, but nothing to do with John Jones. Israel has stated he's too close to Francis Ngannou to fight him. They both have that Nigerian connection. And that Miocic, if Miocic won, we were going to go all the way 100%. And then he was asked again a follow-up question about John Jones, and he said John Jones doesn't come into any of our planning. When we are planning Israel's career, he doesn't exist in any of those decisions. The only person that exists in John Jones' head and life is Israel if we beat anyway, blah blah blah. Basically just saying that it was never going to happen. It's a weird thing to say after losing a fight like this, because I think it indicates to me that he's going back down to middleweight where he belongs, and he'll just continue to dominate that division. Good on Jan, though. I got to admit it, because I was wrong, and I like admitting when I'm wrong, because I feel like that's what a responsible sports person does.
Yep.
Jan proved me wrong. He gained a huge fan this weekend. He looked really, really good. He's more than just the brawler I thought he was. He's got an unorthodox striking technique, and watching that made me think that Izzy could destroy him. But good for you, Jan. All praise. I'm an even bigger fan now. I hope you dominate the light heavyweight division for years to come. But yeah, this is strange. This is definitely strange.
I think so too. I mean, I just to admit that is strange. Marketing wise, it kills their stance on it. At the same time, after watching the Jan versus Izzy fight, I am a huge fan of Jan now as well. I love him outside of the octagon. Now inside the octagon, I'm a huge fan just because he showed like his ground game was impeccable. I mean, just dominating Izzy that way. I mean, that's exactly how he won the fight. Let's just be honest. He striking wise, it was pretty close between the both of them, I would say. But then on the ground, that's when he really dominated, and that's really what made me become a fan of his, because it's he has more than just the one punch power connection, that the legendary Polish power connection that people always talk about. He has more avenues of success when it comes to that. So I'm really happy about that. Yeah,
and he proved to be a smart fighter. I don't think Jan's stupid, but I never thought he was a guy with a high fight IQ until this weekend. I don't know if you ever did, but I never.
No, I haven't. No. Yeah, I hear you. Same here. But Izzy, hopefully going back down to middleweight. Hopefully, what we're gonna see. We're guessing it's gonna be Whitaker versus him, because obviously we think that Whitaker is going to torch Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa is going to come up with another excuse probably of why he lost that fight when he loses that fight. So can't wait to talk about that.
We're gonna after Whitaker beats Costa, we're all gonna wish Romero was still in the UFC.
I still wish he was.
So do I, but I just mean everybody's gonna be like, why the fuck did we get rid of Romero? Anyway, we won't get into that. That's a whole other thing. Romero beat Costa. That's what I'm leading to.
Yeah. Yeah, so far I'm still not a fan of Paulo Costa. I think honestly, people I feel like only like him because he's hilarious. Like he has that triple C kind of charm, cringe, or whatever it is, right? So I just feel like that's the only reason why people like it.
I think it's more cringe than charm, but yeah.
You know what I mean by charm? Like you just get to the audience that way, so that's for sure. All right, people, let's move on to this amazing of a fight card that is UFC Vegas 21. Let's just pull up the fights real quick, and then we will start dissecting them. Let's see. All right. Let's start with the first one, which is your boy's back. That's right. Eric Anders is he is back. Eric Anders is back, and he's facing Darren Stewart now. Both of them are coming off losses right now, so they both have very let's just say inconsistent records. and to be blunt about everything, but for sure inconsistent records. I'm picky. I think I'm gonna be picky with my heart on this one, just because I don't know. Your boy has always been a favorite of mine, even though he's had quite the losing record before back in 2019. But then he's starting to come up again, and I believe in him. So I'm probably gonna pick Eric Anders to win this fight, even though Darren Stewart is not one to to look past. So what do you think, Alikar?
I'm gonna go the opposite with you. I think Darren Stewart's gonna win this fight. If we go back and look at his fight history, he's coming off that loss. But it was a split decision loss to Kevin Holland. During the middle of the Holland streak, obviously, of last year. And it was the closest fight Holland fought in, too. Eric Anders is coming off a loss to Jotko.
Yeah, Joko, yep.
So, I mean, you want to talk about opponents right there. Kevin Holland's the much, much better fighter. Kevin Holland is getting ready to contend for a championship. Eric Anders, we talked about it before the last fight. I love Eric Anders. Everybody likes Eric Anders. It's hard not to like the guy.
Yeah.
I just think his best days are behind him. A lot of it's not his fault, but that being said, it does depend on which Darren Stewart we get. If we get the Darren Stewart that could get to a split decision loss with Kevin Holland, yeah, he's probably going to beat Eric Anders. But if we get the Darren Stewart who couldn't beat Julian Marquez in 2017 or some of these other guys, then he's probably going to lose. But I'm going to go with Darren Stewart. And both of these guys kind of have their careers on the line or just their legacies on the line. So I think Darren Stewart's going to come out just because I think he's the better fighter as of right now.
Okay, so we'll disagree on that just because I'm picking with my heart, even though I obviously agree with some of the points that Alec Carr has made. So we'll move on to the flyweight belt. Manuel Cape is back. Okay, he is back, and this is a quick turnaround for him. He is going to be facing Matthews Nicolau, if I'm pronouncing that right. Hopefully I am. Matthews Nicolau. And I was disappointed. We were both disappointed in Cape's first fight. We wanted to see more of him, and hopefully maybe this fight, hopefully we'll get to see more of him. I wanted to see a more aggressive Cape. Again, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, saying that was his first UFC fight. I'm going to say, he has more to offer than what he did in his first performance. So, against Pantoja, I think it was, against Pantoja, yeah. Right? So, I'm going to be picking Cape just because I know he has more to offer, but again, I don't want to be disappointed again because I want to see more aggression when it comes to Cape. What do you think, Alikar?
I think we're both huge fans of Cape. I had huge expectations of him going into the Pantoja fight. He's a really fast fighter, crazy quickness, crazy speed, crazy striking. And you're right, it looked like he did it was his first fight in the UFC. It looked like he outsmarted himself. He was trying to fight too smart, and instead of just going ahead, because when he would get into exchanges with Pantoja, he won every single exchange. When they got into an exchange, he won every single time. He made Pantoja miss, and he would land like 2 or 3 strikes. It's just that only happened 4 or 5 times throughout the whole fight, whereas Pantoja was constantly pushing forwards and constantly engaging in him. I think Cape wins this fight. I think he even mentioned something out after the fight that, he didn't push hard enough. He didn't go for it. He felt like crap because he knows he could have won. He felt like he still won. And point-wise, you could say he did because he was landing a much higher percentage of his strikes. He just wasn't throwing. I think he's going to go out there. I think he's going to throw like crazy, like the Cape we've seen in Rizin. It's just going to go out there and throw crazy like 4 or 5 punch combinations and
right that yeah
and maybe I'm just hoping that's what we see but
yeah me too
but I think he wins this. I'm gonna go with the second round KO.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good statement. I would agree with you. Second round KO by Manuel Cape. Hopefully you don't let us down this time, Cape, and hopefully you don't let yourself down as well, because I know you did for sure. So the next fight, I'm gonna lock it in right here. This is my lock bet because anytime Jonathan Martinez fights, I am all about it. Okay, so he is fighting Davy Grant, which is someone you should not look over whatsoever because, like Alec Carr mentioned before our stream, his ground game is impeccable. He's a monster, and so, but at the same time, Jonathan Martinez is on a roll right now. He is, even though he's missed weight, even though I'm not a proponent of that, I don't agree with the last time he missed weight. I believe he missed like 4 pounds or something like that. I was not happy about that. But at the same time, as a fighter, he is up and coming. He is a star, and that's why he is. This fight is my lock bet right now. I'm picking Jonathan Martinez to win against Davy Grant, and I know Ali Carr agrees with me, even though he knows that we talked about this a little bit. Even though you know that Davy Grant is not someone you should just slide over really quickly. So what do you think, Ali Carr?
I think he's got to be careful in this fight.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I think he's gonna win this fight. I think he should win this fight. I don't think the fight should even be close. But if Davy
Yeah.
Grant gets this to the ground, which is gonna be his only goal in the entire fight, is to get Jonathan Martinez on his back. Look out, because this guy can choke you out. He can do all kinds of crazy shit on the ground. He's gotten caught in the past in the ground because he's a one trick pony. It's all he really can do. So he tries to do it against everybody. But I guess we really haven't seen a lot of Jonathan Martinez on the ground. So that's my biggest worry in this fight. Now, like I said, I think this might be over in the first round because I think Jonathan Martinez I'm a huge fan of him too. I'm locked in every time he's on a fight card, I'm watching. Because the guy's just that good. So I think this could end in the first round, but this gets to the ground, it could get ugly. I'm gonna be doing one of these where I'm not looking but looking at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I don't think this is going to be like. Of course, Davy Grant's going to try to get into the ground, but Jonathan Martinez has great, defense as well.
Yes,
so
does.
I'm not too like worried about him getting to the ground, getting to a point where he's vulnerable on the ground. I'm just because I just know that he's such a pressure forward kind of fighter, and I feel like that's exactly what's going to happen in this fight. He's gonna power forward with his strikes, with his kicks, and he's just going to annihilate Davy Grant. That's exactly what I think is gonna happen. But that's my lock bet, guys. I told you, anytime Jonathan Martinez is fighting, I am totally locked in, and so is Alec Carr. But okay, so the next fight that we're gonna talk about is the featherweight belt, which is okay. This is a little bit hard for me to choose. We have Gavin Tucker, who is the Canadian, versus Dan Ige, the person that for some reason Alec Carr does not like, and he can't figure out why. So that's what we have next. Now, Dan Ige is tough. Okay, so like one of the reasons why this is tough for me to pick is because he's tough. And then usually I do root for the Canadians, to do very well. And Gavin Tucker is somebody that I really like. But at the same time, Dan Ige has the what's called the repertoire and the experience and the toughness that he has in him. And he's a great striker as well. So I'm just saying, I'm probably going to side with experience in this one and pick Dan Ige. What do you think, Alec Carr?
I want to disagree with you so much. I really do. Dan Ige, coming off the loss to Calvin Kattar, which is obviously no joke. By beating Edson Barbosa in 2020, Barbosa is one of my favorite fighters of all time, but in 2020, he's clearly a different fighter than he used to be. Kevin Aguilar is a good fighter. I'm going to pick Dan Ige. I just think, experience will trump out in this. And I think he does have the better striking. I think he might be the better fighter. Gavin Tucker is no joke. Listen. I know I'm from the United States, but I tend to root for Canadian fighters too. I don't know why. I just really like them. So I'll be definitely rooting for Gavin Tucker. But I think you're right. I think you are absolutely right to side with Dan Ige, and I'm going to too.
I just think like he is the overall better fighter, even though we don't want to admit it. Because I'm indifferent when it comes to Danny Gay. I don't have an opinion when it comes to him, But I think he is the better fighter. I think he's the tougher fighter as well. So it's gonna be really hard to knock him out. Gavin Tucker has that mindset and stuff like that. So I just think that that's the reason why I'm picking Dan Ige, even though, like I said, he is really tough and it's going to be very hard for him.
Yeah, another thing too, it's hard to judge Gavin Tucker. This is a guy whose best fight was what? I can never say his name. Billy Quarantillo?
Oh, Quarantillo, yeah.
So that he's a good fighter, but that's his best fight. That's his toughest matchup so far. That being said, he's only lost one fight his entire career. So this is definitely going to be his toughest test yet, and Dan Ige is really good in those situations where he's going up against the guy who's up his toughest. He usually shows up. As much as I, for whatever reason, don't like him, Dan Ige usually shows up ready to fight. Doesn't matter who the opponent is.
Yeah, so, and I will say this: Gavin Tucker, the reason why he won against Billy Quarantillo is because Billy Quarantillo, usually I had money on him. We both picked him actually during that fight. Mm-hmm. But Gavin Tucker, he just dominated on the ground. And that's the thing.
Yes,
Dan Ige, I know he has defense for sure, ground defense, and at the same time he is obviously the better striker than Billy Quarantillo. So that's why this is a little bit of a different matchup in terms of levels of competition. So that's another reason why I'm picking Dan Ige to win this fight. All right, So let's move on to the co-main event. We got Misha Cirkunov versus Ryan Spann, which I'm actually, interested in this fight a little bit, even though I know that it's not my favorite fight in the main card. That's for sure. My favorite fight in the main card is the Jonathan Martinez fight. Let's just be honest, and then obviously the main event. But let me look at this fight, and I'm liking Ryan Spann a lot. Misha Cirkunov, I don't know why. For some reason, I'm never sold on him to win the fight. Right? It's just, am I crazy? And I always think when it comes to Misha Cirkunov, I'm not sold on him to win any fight right now. Just because he's older and he's it's just downwards from here. And Ryan Spann is he is kind of up and coming, so I'm rooting for him to win this fight. What do you think, Alikar? I'm not a big fan of this being the co-main event either, by the way.
Neither am I. That was going to be my opening statement on this fight. I have no idea why this is I'm excited for the fight too. It's just disappointing that it's the co-main when you got Jonathan Martinez on the card. You got, Dan Ige, Gavin. You got all these. Yeah, you got all these fighters on the card. And you put in Spann versus Cirkunov, who most people don't even know who those guys are. I'm picking Ryan Spann too. Misha is very, very going back to being a one-dimensional fighter, and you're right. I've never really been sold on him. Every time he seems to win, he seems to follow it up with a loss. The Johnny Walker loss, maybe I'm forgetting on how that fight happened, but it is pretty telling because, Johnny Walker's nothing. That's a fight he should win. And he lost. Now, everybody loses every once in a while, but that tells me that age might be getting to him, that maybe he's the one-dimensional fighter he's always been. He's going to try to get you to the ground. He's going to try to tap you out. Ryan Spann, like you said, he's younger. He's an up-and-comer. He's beaten Sam Alvey. Now he's lost to Johnny Walker too. So, again, I'm excited for this fight. I think Ryan Spann wins. I'm going to go with a decision here. I think he wins by decision. I think he keeps the fight standing for most of the fight, and he wins that way.
Okay, I agree with you with that. All right, let's just move on to the main event, which I'm excited to talk about. It is a welterweight bout between Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. Bilal, remember the name Muhammad. All right, I know that's quite the long name, but let's talk about it real quick. So Leon Edwards, I think everybody forgets how good Leon Edwards actually is. Because, you know why? Because he hasn't fought in like a year and a half or something like that. I have to go back to my records and look at it, but that's why a lot of people forget how good he is because it's been a long time because nobody wanted to fight him or the fact that his visa was not working. Do you remember that? Do you remember that
Yes.
when his visa was working, he had an opponent, and it was just like, and he couldn't come to the United States and stuff like that. So that was happening. So and then Bilal Muhammad, like kudos to Bilal Muhammad for stepping up and fighting Leon Edwards because Bilal Muhammad, his last fight against Diego Lima, I mean, talk about impressive right there. Talk about impressive. Now Diego Lima is, as much as I love Diego Lima, he's not like someone I would consider top of the line, really good fighter. I wouldn't say that, but at the same time, Bilal Muhammad looked amazing. He obviously dominated that fight, and he's good to go. Like he's clearly good to go. That was a fast turnaround, probably about what, like a few weeks or something, and then Bilal Muhammad's
Yeah,
fighting again. Yeah,
February.
yeah, at least a month, or like at least a month turnaround. Now he's fighting again. So this one is a little bit hard for me to choose, just because, like, again, Leon Edwards, I haven't seen him fight in like it feels like a long time, and at the same time, Bilal Muhammad is ready to go as a fighter. So I think, oh man, this is tough for me. Okay, you go first, Alucard, because I'm
All
still on the fence.
I'm gonna try to make this even easier for you, all right, and for
Okay.
everybody out there. I want to remind people that Leon Edwards has been in fight camp since a year ago, March 21st, 2020. He was in a fight camp to fight Tyron Woodley, and the fight got canceled. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then he was in a fight camp for Chimaev, and then in another fight camp for Chimaev, and then in another fight camp for Chimaev. So it's not like he's taken time off. He's been training. He's probably the most fight ready he's ever been in his entire career. And I also want to remind people of this because a lot of people have forgotten about that. If I told you there was a fighter out there that had beaten RDA, Gunnar Nelson, Donald Cerrone, and Peter Sabata and Vicente Luque, wouldn't you pick that fighter over Bilal Muhammad every single time?
Yeah.
Well,
No,
that's Leon Edwards. So
yeah.
I listen. I love Bilal Muhammad. I love this quick turnaround. I love guys that are always willing to take the risk to do a turnaround. It speaks to their character. It speaks to what their priorities are. Is obviously he wants to fight. And the Diego Lima fight, he was absolutely incredible. You're right. You're absolutely right. Leon Edwards is top 5 for a reason, though. This guy's a beast. He's beaten some of the best guys. And Donald Cerrone was back in 2018. Cerrone was still, he wasn't at the top of his game anymore, but he was still a really good fighter.
Yeah, he's still really good.
So for me, I thought this was going to be harder to pick when the fight was first announced, but after going back and looking at Leon Edwards and watching him, I'm like, damn, this guy is the real deal. He wants a title shot. I think he's going to go out there and prove a point because he's pissed off that he's had 4 fights canceled within a year. That's insane. This guy's ready. He's ready to go. Doesn't matter that he's taken a year off because he's still been training. And he's been training for, again, I love Bilal Muhammad, but he's been training for a harder matchup for him in Khamzat Chimaev.
That's true.
So I think Leon Edwards wins this. I think this is again another go the distance. Well, maybe not because it's the main event, so it's 5 rounds. So I'm going to say TKO in the third.
Okay. TKO in the third. Okay, because this is gonna be a 5-round fight anyway. So there you
Right.
go.
I don't think it goes all 5. I just don't. I
No,
don't
I don't
see it
think so.
going that long.
No, I don't think so either. So okay, so I'm definitely leaning towards like Leon Edwards. Originally, it's just that like Alec Carr said, we haven't seen him fight in so long, but it doesn't mean that he stopped training. And I love Bilal Muhammad, like guys that are ready to step up and fight, just like how I like Kevin Holland. Same thing. The reason why, but Leon Edwards has been preparing, like you said, for a harder fight, a tougher fight than Bilal Muhammad for a while now. So I guess you have a really good point, Alec Carr. Well, anyways, speaking of which, next week's fight card, I'm excited about next week's fight card because we got Derek Brunson versus Kevin Holland, and we have names that are coming back, such as Gregor Gillespie. Like, where the hell was he? Like, a long time ago.
I know.
Right?
Taya Tuivasa is back.
Max Griffin is back. Okay, so there's a bunch of names out there. I'm not sure if the Paul Craig fight is still happening, just because I heard it had to be moved to June, but that's just me. Against Jamal Hill, which is because I love Jamal Hill,
right?
Like, and then Paul Craig.
I could give two shits about Paul Craig, but
yeah, he's kind of boring. Let's just be honest right now. But I'm excited about next week's fight card. And that does it for this week's edition of Fights and Rap, people. Happy fight week, and we'll see you all next week. Bye, everybody.
See you, everybody.